Okay, good afternoon and welcome to our Facebook Live event. My name is McGrogan and I am the Clinical Advisor for Egan, and I'm delighted you're able to join us today. So the major changes associated with stoma surgery, particularly if it was unplanned or an emergency, can be extremely difficult for some to cope with, especially within those first few weeks and months ahead. And for some people, stoma formation can have a profound impact, both emotionally and psychologically, leading to a loss in confidence and reduced self-esteem, which subsequently can have a huge impact on your personal relationships, your ability to socialize and resume everyday activities. With this in mind, I'm delighted you've joined us for today's event, which will explore the psychological impact of stoma formation. And today's speakers are Bronagh Starrs, an internationally renowned psychotherapist from Northern Ireland, who will discuss coming to terms with a stoma and explore living with a stoma in a manner which does not diminish your sense of self. We will then be joined by Luciana Podschun, who has very kindly and bravely agreed to share her story about her experience on adjusting and coming to terms with life with a colostomy. And I have no doubt both Bronagh and Luciana will provide great insight and reassurance for so many of you. So please feel free to insert any questions in the chat box and we will do our best to answer throughout the session. On behalf of Egan, I would like to say a massive thank you to both Bronagh and Luciana for agreeing to join us today and share their wealth of knowledge and personal experience. Over to you, Bronagh.
Hello, good afternoon, folks. You're very welcome. Thanks for joining us. So yeah, my name is Bronagh Starrs. I'm a psychotherapist based in Omagh, and I teach and work nationally and internationally, well, just on a computer via Zoom at the minute, actually. So you're all welcome, and I'm going to be talking about the psychological impact of living with a stoma. So I suppose, and I'm not medically trained, but the normal anatomy and function of the gastrointestinal system are changed after having a stoma, and the intestinal contents are now diverted to the exterior by an opening in the abdomen, and the contents then are collected and then they need to be changed regularly. I don't need to tell you that. That's what happens. But just that whole experience, it's not just, you know, oh, you have this stoma now and that's it, and on ahead with your life. Like, you know, like having your appendix out, you go in, get the appendix out, you kind of recuperate for a little while, and then on you go, and you're back to full capacity and full function. And the only time you ever think about the appendix is you maybe see the scar, and that's literally it. On you go. There's a real different experience when it is stoma surgery, and there are lots of physical needs. So your stoma nurse and the surgeon and all, they'll talk to you about what you have to do to physically take care of yourself and the stoma bowel, but also there are lots of psychological needs following stoma surgery. So that's what we're going to focus on in this talk, because I'm not medically trained. So in terms of the psychological impact, whilst it may improve quality of life, having a stoma, there may be body concerns and sexual difficulties, reduced social function, and you know, you just don't feel like going out, or you're a bit nervous about being out, and then stigmatizing attitudes as well. I mean, people don't talk about the bowel generally. Like, you know, I just remember as a kid, my granny would go into great detail about her bowel movements to her friends, and I'd be like, oh my God. But apart from that, it was nothing, you know, we joke about it, but we don't talk. So this is something that you may really need to talk about, but finding someone to talk to and listen to you can be really difficult. And also, you really hit your self-esteem as well. So people can feel very highly shamed around having a stoma. And of course then, you know, you're more maybe open to feeling anxious, feeling down, feeling really overwhelmed, and just the getting out of bed in the morning can be tough mentally, not let alone what you have to do as soon as you get out of the bed in terms of the stoma. So really the challenge is that you have to tend to it and develop a relationship with your stoma. And I think I've identified 3 stages in the journey of living with a stoma. And actually, for some people, there are just 2 stages. So let me take you through those just briefly. So the first stage is the immediate aftermath. And stoma surgery creates a sense of alteration in body image and a change in awareness in both the appearance, you know, our body appearance and the functioning of our body as well. So as a human being, you know, stoma surgery dramatically alters your experience of yourself. That's a massive change. And you may have woken up following surgery and now you have a stoma that you didn't know you were going to have, or maybe it was planned. So either way, there'll probably be a lot of shock there. And initially having a stoma can have a negative effect on the psychological well-being of a person. Now, the good news is it is certainly not necessary that will continue. So, actually, even from the outset, having a stoma means that the world could open up, but also close down a little bit at the same time. So there are lots of things that you can do when you think about it. You know, what can I do now that I have a stoma? You might experience it that, God, this is such a positive life change because of the improved health status that I have. And I take it in my stride because maybe that ulcerative colitis that I've been suffering with that had been so limiting to everything about my life. I should feel now that I can do everything that I want to do, and it's so liberating to have this stoma, and it's a new lease of life. And certainly that can be the experience. So some people just automatically embrace it, going, you know, ordinarily I don't want this, but I need it, and I'm going to go for it. But I guess most people have a more rocky relationship to begin with, and it maybe is more defined by what you can't do. You know, you can't exercise now, or well, you can, but maybe I feel like I can't, or I feel like I can't go on dates or be sexual, or, you know, get naked with someone, and anything that involves the body, or maybe wearing certain clothes. You know, gosh, I'd love to dress in a wee slinky dress or a wee bikini or something, and there's no way I could do that now. Of course you can, but maybe you feel like you couldn't. Or maybe I'm preoccupied with odors and I can't go anywhere because I'm worrying about the stoma bag that it's going to leak or even come off completely. And I know, talking to people, that are major concerns about experiences of stoma bags leaking, and this can be a massive source of stress for people and really impacts us socially as well. Like, you know, if you're at home by yourself sitting doing the crossword and you have a leak from the stoma bag, you know, it's really annoying if that happens, and it kind of a bit disruptive. But if you're out and about with other people, maybe you're at the cinema or you meet a friend or two for a coffee, you know, it's an anxious and a scary thing and a publicly humiliating thing. So there can be a lot of anxiety about caring for the stoma properly and having complications, and am I doing this right and stuff. And also potentially negative body image, you know, that despite possible considerable improvement in the quality of your life, you're looking down at this thing going, I don't want this to be here. So some people will embrace it right from the get-go, but for a lot of people there is shock and overwhelm, and it feels like an awful thing. I don't want this. So that's the kind of a very short synopsis of the immediate aftermath. Then the second stage is a short-term experience. So the first thing to do, I said that sometimes, you know, people only have 2 stages and sometimes people have 3. So the first thing to do with the short term is, you know, is this a temporary ostomy, or is it permanent? Or is there uncertainty around it, you know, that you don't actually know yet after a bunch of months of living with it? Or even a year. It's like, you know, is this ever going to come off? So the short-term aftermath, I guess, depends on the status of your stoma as well. So with the temporary, you know, maybe at this stage there's an end in the horizon going, well, I only have 2 more months left or 6 more months left, and I hate this I find it difficult, but I don't have to accept it. I just have to navigate the world with it. I have to make sure that I tend to it properly. I'm finding it's such a strain to do it, or I'm actually finding it fine, but it's temporary. And one day soon, I'll not have to, this will be reversed. I'll not have to wear this and live with this. The second aspect of the short-term experience is the uncertainty, where there's a lot of anxiety with the uncertainty. This is what if this never comes off? What if I have to live with this? What if I'm going to have a stoma for the rest of my life? And imagining the different possibilities. So at least when you know it's temporary, or you know that it's permanent, you can kind of manage that. But when it's uncertainty, I'll give you a little example around how our brains do not like uncertainty. There was a piece of British research that people were separated into two groups, and one group of the people were going to be given a mild electric shock, a mild painful electric shock, every few minutes over the course of a little space of time. And the other group were told that there was a 50% possibility that they would be given the mild painful electric shock. And then they did a stress test on them, and they discovered that the people who knew for sure that they were getting the shock actually had lower stress levels, which doesn't sound right, because when you think, gosh, you'd imagine that the people who are 50-50 would be more positive, because there is a 50% chance that I will not experience the shock. But actually, it turns out that our brains do not do uncertainty very well. So if you're listening to this and you feel that you're in that uncertain place, it may be useful to get some help with your anxiety. Your thoughts could be running off around the what if scenarios. And then with the short term as well, it's like, is it permanent? Is this, I've got over the hump of the immediate aftermath. Am I really having to come to terms with this full on now? So in the short term aftermath, there are a few things. One is familiarity. We experience more confidence managing it physically. At the start, it's a bit like having a brand new baby, and you don't know if you're doing it right, and you're so neurotically anxious about it all. And then by the time your second or your third kid comes, they're hanging off your hips, and you're kind of throwing anything at them, and it's grand. So over the course of the short term, there should be more confidence, I imagine, coming in terms of how you manage physically, and more confidence about moving around in the world. So you're more likely to be able to say, yeah, I'll go for a coffee. You may still be anxious about, oh my God, what if there's a leak, or what if I need to change it, or whatever, but that should be hopefully diminishing a bit. And then also the social, the relationship piece. If you're struggling with self-image and continuing to struggle, that you'll be really preoccupied. So if I'm going for a cup of coffee with my friends, I'm preoccupied about how I look and what I wear, and if there's an odor, and what if this happens, and what if that happens, what if this, and what should I eat, and what should I not eat, and then what will my friends think of me, and if this happens, what will happen? So there still could be a lot of self-consciousness around. For most people, it's a journey to acceptance. So the short-term experience can still be difficult for lots of people. There can be plenty of anxiety, and maybe feeling a bit down at times, and feeling a bit overwhelmed, and the stress levels can be up at times. But there should be a certain degree of comfort and familiarity beginning to grow around this, and a sense of mastery that, I can do this, I can live with this. I don't necessarily want to live with this, but I can live with this. Or similarly, as we were talking about earlier on, the people who embrace it from the get-go, they're just out living their lives and trying not to allow it to limit them. So the third stage is the long-term range, and this is the stage, I guess, that the people who have a permanent stoma bag have got to deal with. And it's I suppose you are forced to develop a relationship with your stoma. This isn't going away. It's like a welcome. or an unwelcome guest in your life who's just not leaving. So one of the things that's really, really crucial for long-term range patients is a letting go of the way that it was or the way that it could have been. Like, I used to do this and I could have, you know, God, if I hadn't a stoma now, I'd be able to do that. And God, I remember being able to wear this and I was doing all this kind of lifting or whatever it is. And letting go of that. And you know, in a kind of a grieving process, and you may need support to do that, but embracing the what is, it's like well, this is where I'm at. It's a plan B. The plan A for everyone in our lives is a full health and full body functioning. That is always our plan A. And a lot of us end up with a plan B, which is like, this is not what I envisaged, but it's where I'm at. And it's embracing that, the what isness of the situation, going, you know, damn it, I gotta just get with this now. Because there's a real risk of being defined by your limitations and being defined by the negativity that, you know, it's what I can't do, and the almost becoming a bit bitter then about having this, and I've never really been able to move beyond it. So if you find that you're maybe, you know, in the initial stages, that immediate aftermath, and you're struggling, well, that's because you're a human being. It's okay, it's really natural. And the struggle should hopefully begin to diminish in that short-term period where you're becoming more familiar with it. And it can still maybe be easier to tend to it, but still give you a lot of anxiety. You can feel that you really struggle with how you look and your body image and stuff like that. But maybe the struggle is diminishing and you're being able to feel a bit more positive about it. And then the long term is really about that. We've got to go with this plan B. We've got to let the plan A go. And you've allowed yourself to kind of grieve all of that, and you can fully embrace the present. So your life then becomes defined by what you can do and the benefits, and yes, there are definitely stresses, and there's still concerns about leakages or complications or still things that you would love to be able to do that you can't do. But really, you find support at this stage. If you're still struggling, hopefully you've been supported right through your journey, but you find support at the internal level and the external level to move beyond being a stoma patient and reclaiming your whole self and your life, and really living life as fully and as possibly as you can. But the emphasis there is finding support. So what happens usually, you know, in terms of the psychology of this, if people are really, really struggling with the experience of a stoma psychologically, now you might be physically experiencing a lot of struggle because there are issues going on with the stoma bag, or, you know, or your physical health. I can't help you with that. I'm not medically trained, but so that can be stressful in and of itself. But if you're hopefully getting support around that, if you're continuing to struggle with the psychological piece, you know, the mental, the emotional piece, it's likely, it's not totally a given, but it's very likely that you're experiencing some kind of denial. And denial means, I just don't want this thing. I don't want it. I resent it. I'm bitter about it. It's not fair that it's here. You're holding on to a battle with the stoma. And whilst it isn't fair that you have it and it's not okay, it's like, it is what it is. It's the plan B. And your life is going to be defined by this denial and by that struggle, which is going to bring its own set of problems. So now you have the stoma with the bitterness and the resentment and the denial, and you have a whole host of psychological problems because of it. So you can do a lot about the denial. So there are three kind of little tips for you around the denial that you can do. In fact, for anyone at any stage, any of these three would be useful exercise to do now, unless you feel like you've fully embraced it. So the first one is to acknowledge the struggles and the good things, the benefits and the struggles that come with living with a stoma. Maybe, you know, some of the good things or bad things are not being able to exercise the way you want, or maybe having more freedom, having less freedom, and answering the question, what is the worst thing about having a stoma? What is the best thing about it? So really acknowledging the struggles and the benefits, and maybe write 2 lists of those can be useful. And the second one is acknowledge your feelings about having a stoma. So again, write a list of what are the feelings, maybe sadness, anger, frustration, fear, gratitude, hope, whatever these feelings are. And then the third thing is find support. Bring your lists to someone who is a good listener, maybe a therapist or a counsellor, maybe your stoma nurse, maybe a good friend, and just say to them, you know, I just need you to really hear me out here. I really need someone to acknowledge what I've acknowledged. So you present your list to them, the struggles and the benefits. Well, what is it like to live with a stoma? Then acknowledging your feelings about it, like here's how I feel about the stoma, or tracking your journey. This is what it's been like for me from the moment I discovered that this was going to happen, to the surgery, to the immediate aftermath, to the short term, to now the long term, and I need to talk about what it's been like for me. And you know, one of the hallmarks of moving away from trauma is to acknowledge it and to not allow it to define your life. And you know, you'll still, I think, you know, have the burden of living with this. This still is a thing that you're going to have to negotiate, but you can do it more gracefully if you have support. And I guess that the biggest mistake that people may make, and certainly if it's something that you've done up until now, maybe you'll change it. The mistake is that you feel like your emotional needs, your psychological needs, you know, the anxiety that you're feeling, or you feel like crap about your body, whatever, that they actually don't warrant professional attention. Yeah, I don't matter, I'll just get on with that. It's a really massive mistake. That's the biggest stumbling block in accepting your stoma. So folks, hopefully that's been a useful starter, and I am going to now just hand back to Marie to continue this session.
Okay, thank you so much, Bronagh. That was so informative, and certainly I've learned even strategies to help, you know, in that whole journey. And as you said, talking about, you know, coming to the stage where full acceptance, you know, and the value of support, obviously. So thanks very much, Bronagh. I know you're going to join us towards the end if there are questions, and I would encourage anyone who has questions to please enter them into the chat box. And we're delighted to see we've got quite a number of people from all over the globe. So welcome to those of you that joined us a wee bit late. But thanks again, Bronagh. We'll see you in a wee while. So I would now like to introduce Luciana. Luciana, thank you so much for, as I said earlier, for joining us today and for agreeing to share your story in relation to your coming to terms with your own stoma. So I suppose if we start with, just to sort of to give everybody a wee bit of background, if we start with when you were diagnosed and, you know, at what age and how that impacted you before you actually reached the stage where you needed a stoma, if you don't mind.
Right. Thanks very much for the invitation. And yes, so I was first diagnosed in 1990. So I was nearly 19, so I was very young. And I've been through many complications and hospitalizations and different treatments, because in that time it was completely different from today, the treatments. So and because my inflammation was always in the same area, when I was about 25 years of having the disease,
Yes.
After a flare, the doctors told me that I really needed to have a stoma surgery, because there was a high risk of cancer. That's the problem when you have the inflammation for a long time. That's what can happen, especially if it's in a specific area, just in certain areas, right? In my case, it was just at the end of the colon, so it was quite shocking in that time.
Sure. Okay. And before surgery, so it was Crohn's disease that you had, I believe, Luciana?
Yeah. Yes, Crohn's disease, yeah.
Yes. So the Crohn's was well under control, but it was clearly because you had the disease for for so many years, that the risk of it becoming cancerous was too high, and therefore I believe you had to have your rectum removed and formation of a permanent colostomy. Yes? That's
right, yes. The rectum and the anus as well. Yes.
Okay,
because I always had the disease in that area.
Sure. So, I mean, for you, was that something that came to you as a shock? Because obviously you'd lived with Crohn's, you possibly knew there was a risk that you may need a stoma down the line, or how did it feel when the surgeon said you're going to need a stoma?
You know, you have that feeling that there is always a risk to happen, but you don't want to accept.
Yeah.
And it took me about 1 year to digest the idea that I was going to be a permanent ostomate, because I had my surgery in 2016, but it was in 2015 that I had a flare. I need to stay in hospital for a week. And then after the exams and the scans, they said, oh, there's a high risk. So it took me quite a long time to understand that I really needed this. But then I thought, oh, I love my life. I love my family. I have a lovely husband. I have 2 teenage boys. In that time, they were 9 and 10. And I like to live my life fully.
Yeah.
So why not?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And can I ask, because your surgery was done in Brazil,
That's right, yes.
Can I ask what type of support you would have had pre-operatively? Were you given the opportunity to meet a nurse specialist, or perhaps somebody who'd had a stoma, who had fully recovered and were leading a full life? Were you given the opportunity before you had your own surgery?
Unfortunately not. That's one of the things that I think that it's missing in the system there, because I think when you receive this kind of news, which is quite shocking, the doctors should provide you a psychologist or a support group that you could be in contact with the other people. And unfortunately, the city that I lived in that time didn't have any support group. So I decided to set up an account on Instagram in order to be in contact with the other people. That's why I met people from all over the world. You know, even being in Brazil, I met people here. I hope meet these people one day face to face. Yes, because that's where I got my support, because I felt really desperate.
Yeah,
yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I mean, certainly as a stoma care nurse, I've been a stoma care nurse now since the early 90s. And I know for many ostomates who are struggling, both pre-operatively and after their surgery, to come to terms with it, for them, sometimes the turning point is actually meeting somebody who's leading a very full life and obviously a small part of a bigger life, you know.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So we've talked about the preoperative. If I could now move into just after the surgery. Now, I know it was a bit of a stormy recovery for you.
Yes.
I suppose from a stoma perspective, you know, how did you feel? And for me, I suppose I very much would encourage patients, new patients, the sooner you can deal with this stoma, the sooner you will come to terms with it. And obviously promoting independence is key. So do you mind sharing your story in relation to, you know, that initial immediate recovery?
Yes, of course. Yeah. Because I was expecting to be in hospital for 7 to 10 days. That's what the surgeon said. And then things went wrong. I ended up having 2 other surgeries because my stomach was completely retracted. And then after that, I had adhesions, and I ended up spending 16 days in intensive care unit. I needed blood transfusion, so I stayed 30-40 days. So when I left hospital, I was unrecognizable. I was weak, and I wasn't feeling me. So it was really difficult when I looked myself at the mirror. And especially something went wrong, and I left the hospital with parastoma hernia. I don't know, because of the muscles, they worked a lot. I left there with some bump here. So it was really, really difficult looking myself at the mirror and not seeing me, the person that I used to be before. Yeah. So it took some time for me to get used to again and to come to terms. Yes. And feel me, the Luciana that used to be in the past.
Beforehand, yeah. Absolutely. And I think, as I said, I touched on it. Unfortunately, your recovery was fairly stormy, and you know,
completely, yeah,
a lot to deal with. Thankfully, quite a high percentage of people wouldn't go through the complications that unfortunately you had to endure. But look at you now, obviously 5 years on, and leading such a full life, which we'll now move on to. But I suppose if there's any advice, before we do go into the whole sort of further down the line recovery, if there's any advice that you can give anybody who's out there now, who's maybe about to undergo stoma formation, is there any, you know, particularly within that hospital setting, and assuming everything's going according to plan, it's, you know, as I said, I'm very passionate that the sooner people can start to deal with their stoma, the better. Is there any advice that you would want to give anybody?
Yes, I would say that try to get as much information as you can. Try to be in contact with the other ostomy patients. Try to join some groups, because what I did, because I didn't find any support groups in my city, I tried to join some ostomy support groups on Facebook. And also the Instagram account that I set up. But it's really important, because when I lived in California, I had the opportunity to attend an ostomy group in Silicon Valley. And there I met some people, they were going to have this kind of surgery.
Yes.
And they sometimes they come in couples, because the wife want to bring the husband because he was not feeling okay, and then it's good because you share feelings, you share the concerns, and I think the best person to give some piece of advice would be the person that has been through the same situation. Yeah,
absolutely, thank you. So we've talked about pre-op, we've talked about the immediate post-operative period, but now if we could maybe move into those, I suppose, the turning points for you, Luciana, because you lead such a full life and obviously been able to share that now with everybody. But can you think of any sort of milestone that you did manage in those early days, you know, following your proper physical recovery, and anything that you were sort of really anxious about doing, but once you did it, you felt such an achievement, boosted your confidence, you know, all of those types of things. Is there one particular thing that you know, that you were just so delighted with yourself that you were able to achieve it?
Right. Yes, I think the turning point was when I was depressed, because like Bronagh said, we have stages, right? So, and one of them is to be depressed. And my husband said, I fell in love for the Luciana that I met before, who is full of life, who is happy, who wants to live her life fullest, and not this person who is grumpy now, because it wasn't the real me. So I thought, yes, and he's right. So why not to be the person that I used to be? Because the ostomy won't define me. So, absolutely. And the turning point was my first road trip that it was a 7 days that we went through the Rio, the coast of Rio. So I planned everything. I cut my wafers, did everything, and I was so anxious to go to the sea again, because living in Brazil, it's natural to go to the beach all the times. So I was so anxious, but then I took all the care, like empty my bag and bought a high-waist swimming suit and do everything that, according to many tips that I've read. Yes. And everything went fine. So from that point, from that day, I said, okay, I can do more and more. Yeah. So in less than a year, I ended up moving to another country. I moved to the US and I lived there for 1.5 years. And during that time, we traveled quite a lot. So I went hiking to Grand Canyon, so and to Yosemite as well. So for me, it was a big achievement.
Fabulous, fabulous. Yes. And whilst we're on the subject of traveling, obviously, over the years, a lot of new stoma patients I've looked after who've just had a stoma, one of their biggest worries is about going on holidays and traveling, and even simple things like going through the airport security and, you know, so have you any hints or tips that you would like to share?
What I would say, don't eat much before. Yeah. Try to empty your bag if it's possible. And if for any reason you are caught, because it happened to me 2 times in the US, because I wear the hernia support belt, and then they want to check. So yes, I just showed them, and that's it. Yeah. Be yourself, basically. Yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. And I think, as you've mentioned, being prepared and making sure you think ahead is one of the key, so I suppose the keys to success. And if you planned it well, it should turn out well. Yeah. Exactly.
Yes. And always when I go to travel, not anymore because of the pandemic, but when I used to travel, I plan in advance, and I put everything in a small bag, my wafers cut, and the extra bags, because you don't know what can happen. So it's always good to have more. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And I think a lot of people would, if they're flying, they would take the majority of their products, their equipment in their hand luggage, just because, as we know, it can certainly go missing the main days. So it's having the confidence that you've got it with you,
Exactly, yes. And there's no problem. The only thing, you cannot bring the scissors. That's why I had them pre-cut, but you can put in the other bag. So
yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Thank you. So if there's any other questions out there in relation to travel, please do, as I say, and feel free to enter them and keep entering into the chat function box. So if we could now move on then to the whole intimacy, because I know that's a huge issue for so many people. You know, it's one of the questions that I would have, as a stoma care nurse, I would have been asked so much in that pre-operative stage, and being able to reassure, you know, obviously that things will be okay. But is there anything you would like to share in relation to that side of things, Luciana?
It's normal to feel uncomfortable and insecure in the early days. It's normal. But I think it all depends the relationship you have with your partner, because if the person is supporting you, it's with you at all times, like my husband, things like intimacy happens in a natural way. So my advice is to empty the bag. That's what I do, and sometimes to change everything just to prevent any other. Yes. And in my early days, I used to use the crouchless.
Yes.
Yes, it happens, or sometimes to wear a scarf around my stoma bag or something, or even though if you don't want to wear a scarf, you can wear a tunic or something that you can feel sexy even though having a stoma bag.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
That's what I said, because I recently turned 50. So that's what I said. I don't feel less sexy than a young lady who is 25 just because I have a stoma bag.
Fantastic. Fabulous. Yeah. That's wonderful to hear that. It really, really, truly is. Thank you.
Thank you.
So one of the other, I suppose, milestones that people do become a bit anxious is in and around swimming, going swimming, or for, you know, strenuous activity. Again, I know you're a very fit lady and certainly continue to do a lot of activities. So anything you'd like to share, I suppose, in relation to the swimming side of things? I mean, do you find that the pouch doesn't adhere as well to your skin when you're in the water for a period of time? Or do you use anything to sort of, you know, to sort of strap things down more securely if you are planning on bathing? Any hints or tips?
Oh, I normally change everything, so I know that it's very tucked, right? And the seal, there is some elastic band like you put around your wafer just to prevent any leaking. And when you finish your the time that you are in the swimming pool or in the beach, you just go and change it again. Yes, yeah. That's what I do. Yes.
Yes.
I never had any problems.
Yes, yes. And you talked about hiking. And have you ever camped? Because it's a question that I would get quite a bit, you know, how do you manage when you're camping and away from public toilets? And, you know, is there anything
because I think it was easy for me because I've got a colostomy, so I don't need to empty my pouch all the time. But I bring everything, and my disposable bags and everything, and I go afterwards in the toilet, and I left it there. So yeah, we all managed to do something, so we got to learn.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Just a matter of adjustment. Yes,
totally. So is there anything before we finish up this session, Luciana, is there anything else? I know you touched on the milestone that helped you and was that turning point for you within your journey and giving you the confidence. Anything else that you think we mightn't have covered that you feel would be good to share now that we've quite a number of people on the call now today? I'm just waiting on my colleague. Is there questions there? Yep. Sorry.
What I would say at the beginning can be very tough, can be very difficult, but don't change yourself because of the ostomy. Don't change the way you are. See, like the ostomy is an opportunity to do more things in your life, because now I do much more than before.
Yes.
So I changed countries 3 times. I was in Brazil, I lived in California, now I'm living here in the UK. So I do lots of activities. So see as an opportunity. At the beginning it will be difficult, sometimes you will hate, sometimes it's normal to be okay. It's okay to be not okay at the beginning, because we are humans, right?
Yes, yes.
But see as a second chance to live for your life.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. Wonderful.
That's what I think. Yes, and embrace, because once you accept, you are happy, because you need to accept, then you need to be yourself again. That's what happened to me. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think Bronagh's message, that came very, came across very loud and clear, moving from plan A to plan B in order to reach that acceptance. And
exactly.
Well, is that it's a secure product that you're confident with as well. It all, so it's the physical as well as that whole emotional side of things are key.
Right.
Being able to progress within your whole acceptance and adjustment. Yeah.
Yes.
We've got some questions that are just coming up now. Bronagh, would you like to join us at this point? Thank you.
Thanks.
Luciana, thank you so much for sharing all of that. Honestly, you truly inspire me. You're an
thank you.
amazing lady. You honestly,
such a pleasure to be with you guys, and thanks again for the invitation.
So thank you. And for those of you that aren't aware, Luciana is a blogger on our website, A Bigger Life. So keep an eye out there, and obviously you blog quite often, isn't that right, Luciana?
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Yeah. And as I say, I'm a great believer in mutual support as well to help us through with the journey.
May I say about my Instagram account?
Yes, of course. Mm-hmm.
And my Instagram account is Me and Mr. Crohn, because I said Me and Mr. Crohn because it's the relationship that I have with this disease since I was a teenage girl.
So it's me and Mr. Crohn's.
Yeah, me and Mr. Crohn, just Crohn. Yes, me and Mr. Crohn on Instagram. Yes, I don't post every day, but I share my thoughts and the things that I do sometimes. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, so apologies, I'm just waiting for the questions because the comments were coming through fast and thick there whilst I was chatting, so I couldn't get to read. Okay, so the first one then for yourself, Luciana. Any advice for helping people come to terms when feeling scared? One ostomate has just shared that they're a year on and they're still quite anxious. And sorry, another 4 years on and still trying to accept. So I suppose it's a question for both Luciana and Bronagh. Bronagh, sorry, would you maybe like to comment on that? So a couple of people that are still struggling to be able to move on.
Okay, and that's moving from the short term maybe into the longer term now. And if there's still struggles, I've been reading the comments here, and there's a theme emerging from what I have said, from what Luciana has said, and from the comments themselves from people who are joining the session. Luciana is flourishing at the minute. And has been since shortly after the surgery, and it's because she has impressively reached out and mobilized support for herself. She's found language for her experience. She's found other people who really understand, that sense of community. I don't have to do this by myself, and it can be hard to get the partner or even a professional sometimes to really hear you. People really struggle to be heard, but there are lots of possibilities around this isolation and this intense struggle to accept, and just reading through the comments and from people I've spoken to, it sounds like you know, the physical complications and the physical challenges are one thing, but they're made a lot easier if the psychological challenge has been overcome, and if you have support, and even being able to say to someone, you know, this is crap, I hate this, I feel so awful about myself, you know, I went out for coffee and there was a leak and I hate it and I feel so embarrassed and I want to go swimming but I can't, or I don't think this will ever happen for me. And to allow yourself to be that negative, because what will come back is support from someone who's walked the path. Like, if I had to have the surgery and have a stoma bag tomorrow morning, the first thing I would do would be go on Instagram and find Luciana and go, please help me, what do I do now? You know, maybe more so than the doctor, for example. And yes, I need to know the medical how-tos. But my sense is that struggle is because there's insufficient support.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Thanks very much. Luciana, would you like to add anything to that?
Yes, it might be difficult, and sometimes everyone is different. So it might take 1 year or 6 months or even weeks for you to accept. But as I said, try to see the good things and try to be yourself and love yourself, because I think when you love yourself, you see the good things in life.
Totally.
Yes, the acceptance, I think, is the most important thing, because I see, from me, I was very sad, very depressed. I remember that once we went to Sam's Club. I don't think we have here in the UK, but in Brazil we do. And I was wearing a t-shirt and I was feeling very uncomfortable. Then I left it there running and crying, and I just want to be in the car. So it's normal. Yes, but absolutely. You see that you are not alone. There are thousands of people living in this situation. Yes, so it's absolutely. Not only here in the UK, it's all over the world. So absolutely. And we need to do our best, I think, because we have, if we don't have a husband or a boyfriend, we have friends, we have someone that will care about us. Yes. A friend or someone, and life is too short, so why stay at home and be negative and cry? We try to do our best. Yes,
absolutely, absolutely. Thank you. So the next question then, how to help with body confidence, especially thinking of starting or having relationships, particularly physical relationships. So, and again, that's a question that not just young people would have asked me in years gone by, but, you know, no matter what age, they still want to be able to continue or resume, you know, an intimate sort of relationship. So, but for many who aren't in a relationship and have a stoma, it's when is the right time to tell somebody when you're in a new relationship or you're wanting to date? When is that right time, or how do you broach that subject with a new, potentially new partner? So, Bronagh, do you mind maybe if that's something that you would like to make comment on?
I'm not sure if you asked myself or Luciana, Marie, because my internet just dropped then. Were you asking?
Oh, apologies. No, yes, there was a query in and around relationships.
No, I got that. I just literally didn't hear the last bit. Okay, so I suppose with body image, there are two aspects of it, and one of them is finding the right partner. You know, having a partner that just thinks you're great and loves you and doesn't love you because you look so thin and beautiful and your makeup's on right, or you know, because if it's all about appearance and this person has a limited conditional relationship with you, you know, for lots of reasons, get out of that relationship anyway, but certainly with the stoma, you know, it'll make it even more, because I'm conscious that you've got a stoma. How are you going to feel then? You know, so I think part of it is finding a decent human being to be in a partner with, and then just with everything in life, any adversities, any challenges, together we can find a way through them in a way that Luciana just described so lovely with her and her partner. And the other thing is we're bombarded with body shame in our society. You know, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Make people feel really bad about themselves, and then they'll go out and they'll spend money on makeup and clothes and gym membership and diets, and you know, it's like big bucks here. So now, you know, we all have a certain amount of body shame, or it's presumed that we have to begin with, and then there can be this additional dimension now with the stoma, and I suppose it's really honouring that yourself and saying, you know, I don't have the perfect body anyway, like none of us have the perfect body. This doesn't make me any less perfect. It's a different experience of body. So it's learning, maybe looking in the mirror, and the first thing I see when I look in the mirror is this stoma, and I'm disgusted, and learning gradually to look in the mirror so that I can see myself, and it's like Bronagh with a stoma, not a stoma. So I think there will be a gradual journey for people there.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Luciana, yes, you would agree, and you touched on it earlier, obviously.
Yes, I agree. Yes, and because it's a natural process of life, everybody's going to get old. So you have to be in love for the person that loves you the way that you think, because of your ideas, not because of your body, because old everybody's going to be, and our bodies won't be the same as in the past, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And about how to dress, I just found new ways to get dressed. Yes, I had to to change a bit of my wardrobe, because as I've got the parastoma hernia, so now I wear mostly high-waist pants or skirts.
Yes.
But I still wear dresses, skirts, and everything, just different models.
Yes, different cut or different style, yes.
The different style, yeah.
No, that's a really good point as well. Thanks very much. Another question has come through. I'm very depressed all the time and can't do anything because it burns when I'm sore. And it sounds as if this person has a very flush stoma. And certainly as a stoma care nurse, it's something that I would be able to hopefully be able to come up with a solution. And it's no wonder they're feeling depressed if they're having constant leaks and sore skin. So, I mean, we have so many products, seals, convexity, different products that, as you know, can help. Luciana, you know, can help. Confidence and comfort and security, which again all links in with, you know, with the whole emotion and psychology. So I probably will link in with this person myself at the end of the session privately. Okay. Sorry, the guys, my colleague is just on the screen above. So so here's another question. Where are we? Oh, I was refused access to a swimming pool a few years ago because of my stoma. Oh gosh, that's a tough one. And I remember when I was in the health service, I had a patient who had a similar experience. I mean, obviously, it's completely out of order in my opinion, and that should never happen. My advice would be to contact your local stoma care nurse, who will be able to link in with the individuals within the swimming pool, and obviously they need educated and be able to, you know, hopefully resolve that particular issue. But thankfully it's not a common problem. Would you agree, Luciana?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Yes, but again, if whoever the individual was that at that today, feel free to contact me directly, and I'll happily talk to you in more detail. So another question then. So one person struggling to be listened to by medical people or even friends, and this can be problematic. How can we encourage our friends and family or even medical staff to be better listeners? Bronagh, maybe would you mind touching on that one?
Yeah, I think for lots of medical issues or psychological issues that we endure, when we go to talk to people, there is this urgency that we have, we've got to, there's, I suppose there's a lot of anxiety around it, and there's a sense of got to be positive, got to put a positive spin on it. So I first of all need to tell you how terrible it is. How scary it is, how uncomfortable it is, how anxious I feel, how depressed. If I'm getting really tough time with this, I just need to say it out and say, this is terrible, I hate this. And the difficulty is that everybody else tries to put a positive spin on it. Oh, it's not so bad, this, that, or the other. Just think of the positives and stuff. And what happens is I feel completely overlooked now. I feel totally muted. And I think that's a good thing about community. Like if I'm talking to Luciana, I go, you know what, I feel terrible. I just feel depressed. I can't get out of bed in the morning. Someone was saying there, it's really hard. Even if you do love yourself, it's really, really hard to experience this stuff. I think to just have someone to say, gosh, yeah, this is so tough for you. Really, I get this. I'm so sorry that it's so tough for you. I just walk away with a lightness in my chest because someone is. So maybe if you don't have those people, maybe you need to instruct them. When I train other psychotherapists, they'll go into little groups of 2. So let's say Marie and Luciana are in a group, and I'd say, so Luciana, you're going to be the client and you're going to talk about X, Y, and Z, and Marie, you're going to be the therapist. And Marie, shut your mouth and listen to her. It's an instruction that I will give. It's like, can you listen before you intervene? And I think that's a real issue that we have in generally is like, no, I got to intervene here now. And it's like, no, you have to hear.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, that's the key. Thanks, Bronagh.
And may I say something? And perhaps think about the baby steps, because sometimes you feel so bad that every little move or every little improvement, you have to be grateful. That's what happened to me, because I was so weak, so bad.
Yes.
And I really thought that I was going to die when I went to the ICU.
Yeah.
So every small improvement, little improvement, you have to be thankful, and
Yes.
and then you feel better when you see little improvements.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Can I come on that actually as well? I meet so many traumatized people, not just with having a stoma, but with lots of things. And they come in and they say to me, I'm really lucky. And people say to me, gosh, you're really lucky. You're lucky to have a stoma. And I would say, you're not lucky to have a stoma at all. It's a terrible, you don't want to have it. You'd prefer to have the plan A. You're not lucky. And when people, especially at the start, go, my God, you're so lucky that we got this in time, and you're so lucky that you have a stoma. It's a very confusing thing, because you're lying in this bed, you've got the stoma, and you go, wow, I should feel lucky, I should feel grateful. And I feel the opposite of that. Yeah.
Yes, but that's okay. It's okay to say that. I don't feel lucky. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so one more question then. I think more awareness generally in society and in the media about the realities of living with a stoma would be beneficial. There's still, in my opinion, a stigma about talking openly about bowel issues. To Luciana, do you feel there is still a stigma in society about having a stoma, addressing issues about the bowel? What do you think can help address this?
I think perhaps less now because I've seen lots of people posting about breaking the stigma of the stoma, right? Even me, I try to empower other women in my country, even here, even with my this funny accent, I try to empower other women. So I think less and less, and people are accepting more because, and this is an invisible illness, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think it's, I would absolutely agree. And it's not just with stomas. I think with the whole mental health issue and all of that, I think there's less stigma. Would you?
Yes, less.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Yes, I think Bronag's signal's gone again. Yeah, I was just saying, Bronagh, even the stigma in relation to mental health disease, thankfully, is becoming less and less now.
Well,
yes,
it's
you're
there.
not convinced. We're getting there.
Lots to go, but yeah.
Okay. Okay, I think that's us now. Yes. So, on behalf of Aiken ladies, I would like to say a massive thank you. It's been fabulous. It really has. I mean, I can't thank you enough. And I would hope that by having these conversations, we've made a real difference to people that's joined us today. And as I said, anyone who's still listening, please feel free to link into A Bigger Life, the website, and continue that mutual support opportunity. But thank you everyone for joining us as well today, and all the best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.